After a masterclass, some of the best football we've seen in Europe last night, Chelsea have also got their groove back. Or have they? We're going to discuss that and lots of other stuff in today's episode of One Kick from Glory. I'm joined by Matthew, who's very happy about Chelsea in their groove, and Marcus.
Hey,
And we are all very happy about Chelsea in their groove because it benefits us in more ways than one. But we're going to start right there with the worst club in London, statistically, which is Chelsea. Wasn't really hard this season to kind of assess that, but you are the worst club in London. But you got your first win under Frank Lampard, under reign number 2. Your first win in a long, long time. How does it feel to be back?
We're safe. I can stop talking about this whole 40 points nonsense. We're now on 42, which is great. So yeah, I can say I'm safe. I'm relieved. I can relax. I can breathe, and I can know next game against Forest and a few games after that I can relax. So now mentally and physically, the players are on the beach right now. But as the game was going on, as per usual, we get a goal, then they score. I then found out it was a long range goal, and I was like, sounds like typical us. And the hope kind of like, it didn't sit in for a while. Like I didn't feel too positive. And then I got the vibration because I was on Sky Sports Soccer Saturday. I was like, another goal's come through at the Vitality. I'm like, oh no, here we go. And then I saw the 2, and then I saw the 3, and I'm like, hey, am I watching the same Chelsea here? And then I'm hitting them. They're passing us around the park. We're not doing great, but we're taking our chances. At the end of the game, I was just like, you know what? I'll take it. It's a good day. It's a bank holiday weekend. No work on Monday, Chelsea win. So these things don't come around very often. We've been kind of like, we had 2 bank holidays back to back, and Chelsea got a win in at least one of them. So, I got to take the wins when I can. This might be the last win we get in the season, but hopefully not. But hey, look, I'm a happy man. We're safe. We're good. Poch is coming through. Players looked relatively kind of happy. So, hey, look, positivity all around this time. All good.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a positive result to end what has been a tricky spell for Chelsea. Obviously, I did say at the previous podcast, I wonder what it's going to take for Poch to come in. Will he really wait to the end of the season, or will he kind of jump in a bit sooner? But it seems like end of the year, that's going to be the reality for him. I just want to touch on something for you, Marcus. Obviously, looking at how the game panned out, and I was quite curious as to whether it was the win down to Chelsea dominance, or was it more down to Bournemouth's profligacy in front of goal, or maybe their general incompetence in the match. But what was your take on the performance? Do you feel like it's a big sign that Chelsea are back, or do you think it lays more on the side of Bournemouth being a bit wasteful?
um, it wasn't dominant, was it? Like, it was a good result. They got across the line. They got the win in a game in which, in all honesty, they weren't expected to win based on past form. So, you look at it and you say 3 points in the bag. We're safe. We move on. We move. Like Bournemouth haven't gone above us. Happy days if you're a Chelsea fan. I think from the neutral perspective, it leaves some interesting questions because, Chelsea are going to have a potentially big say in the title race and a big say in the top 4 race. So, um, I think there's still enough question marks there around whether or not they're going to be good enough to take points from any of them other teams along the way. But let's just say that, we're finally glad that Frank Lampard has got a win under his belt and he's not going into, them big games that Chelsea have to play for everybody else with no wins. So, although it is slightly disappointing that Frank Lampard didn't go the entire reign of Chelsea without a point. But yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. And like you said, it is there's almost like bigger fish to fry on the horizon for both of our teams and also for Chelsea, because that, every place you rise up in the table, that's more money. Not that you need it, but for financial fair play's sake, you might actually need it. It might save you not selling Mudryk to Arsenal for £35 million plus 5 million add-ons. The price is going down every week. Right, next week will be 30 million, right? But I wanted to pick up on something to both of you, but I'll start with you, Matthew, then with you, Marcus, because Conor Gallagher made, got a start. It's been a few games since he's actually gotten in the 11 for Chelsea, and he bagged the goal, very crucial goal, very good goal, well-worked goal. I was quite impressed, actually, with the build-up play, Kante's pinpoint cross, and Gallagher just getting in the danger area and putting his head where it could potentially hurt and getting a good header on it. But he made a comment at full time to say that obviously, first and foremost, this is not Chelsea, and he's right. What we're seeing is not Chelsea. But he said that, it's glad that the fans can finally see what they've been working on in the training ground at Stamford Bridge. And it got me thinking, like, with the pattern of playing for you, Matthew, do you feel like in these last couple of games, even though the results haven't quite gone your way, has there been slowly signs of something that Lampard might have? A little bit of the quote-unquote Lampard sauce is coming to fruition. That sauce might be still out of date, but is it coming to fruition?
Look, it's been one game. We won't know until at least we see it in the one, maybe even 2 games. At the end of the day, as good as Bournemouth were, it's like we kind of we took the chances that we had. The players that scored, the players that are going to have a future in this club, they're going to be here for a while. Yes, I know Ziyech got an assist, but he's not going to be here for much longer. I'm glad that he's saying that, this is what we're trying to do on the pitch. That's great. But, that only really holds merit when you get a result here and there, not when you're having 6 on the bounce, not losing and barely scoring.
True that.
So great, it gives us a bit more of an insight to what's happening in behind the scenes, because all we can do is really speculate and guess, and for all we might know, we might be very, very wrong. So they might be doing all this great stuff in training. I have possibly really have no doubt. It doesn't matter if you don't, unless you put it on the pitch and you start communicating and working together as a team. That's why I made it a point there. It's like we should be really playing the players that have some kind of future in the club, that are going to have some longevity, like in Mudryk, like Fernandez, like João Felix. He scored again as well. So he's hopefully, fingers crossed, going to have a future at this club. Kante, I'd love to have another year of him. He's going to probably do some good damage once he gets properly fit. Some of the players that Frank knows are playing on this squad. He's where his managerial chops question, we can question his chops as a manager, but one thing he can do is work with younger players with a point to prove, like the likes of Gallagher. Scored in, he feels like 2 or 3 times now since Lampard's time. So that only really holds water if we get some good results in the last 4 games or something. Like we've got Forest next, or at home. That'll be a proper statement. We haven't had a home win for like at least nearly 2 months. Which is for us, considering our home form is normally like rock solid, it's kind of a crumbling mess at the moment. But if he can get a performance, whatever we see on training work, and we get some goals and keep a clean sheet, I'll be more inclined to believe him. So, but for the time being, it's just like, it's mere speculation at the moment. We need to see a little bit more proof.
Yeah, I want to jump right on that point about these last fixtures. And I'll head over to you with this one, Marcus. So, like Matthew said, they've got Nottingham Forest coming up this weekend at home. They haven't won in a long time at home. Nottingham Forest had a brilliant comeback game against Southampton last game week, which may be the result that sends Southampton down. But I still think they might surprise some people. But let's look at the rest of it. So then after that, you've got Man City, you've got Man United, 2 away games in Manchester. You might as well just stay there for the week. And then you got Newcastle to end it all off. So that's that realistically for both our teams, actually for all 3 of our teams, I'm looking at 12 points there. Mark, what's your take on Chelsea's prospects in those final 4 games?
Yeah, look, I think for me as a Liverpool fan, looking at it purely with my own selfish hat on, I almost see it as like Chelsea have 2 chances to do us a favour, right? Like they play Man United. If they bottle that one, then we get to the final game of the season and they've got Newcastle. And as long as we can be within 3 points of Newcastle, then let's hope they don't bottle that one, right? Like that's kind of how I'm seeing it at the moment. I don't care what happens against Forest. I don't really care about you winning at home. I personally just care about the games that affect us, as I'm sure Clive feels the same way from an Arsenal perspective. If it's more likely that Chelsea are going to perform well against Man United and Newcastle if they win at Forest, then I'm all for you beating Forest. But ultimately that's really kind of how we view it from a kind of bigger picture perspective. I don't think it matters too much to Chelsea at this stage. Chelsea's reality is next season. New manager. This is why I don't really care what Conor Gallagher's talking about how things are looking good on the training field. Who cares? Like, you're going to have a new manager, new system, new process, new everything. Like, you might not even be there come the summer. Like, at the end of the day, like, I don't think it's all that big of a deal. for Chelsea in that regard. Sure, they'd like to end the season well, but we all know it's been a horrific season for Chelsea, and they're going to have to rebuild and start again next year. So
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of work for Chelsea to do. It's going to be a big job for whoever takes over, if it's Pochettino, if the Lampard gets it for the season. I mean, I'm not against that. I'm really not against that, especially if he wins the next 4 games, beats Man City comfortably away from home. I think that's a good shout to get the job.
Not there yet. I never said that.
Well, you don't have to, but I think I might have said a good little tweet to Todd Bowley and James Corden for another favour, and he might be in business.
James, stay in America. Todd, no, just no.
But yeah, we're gonna move down from like I said, it's a good result for you guys, and I feel that it's one match. It's very hard to assess it in the grand scheme of things. I did see some positive shoots from you guys in that Real Madrid game, which you were unfortunate not to convert it into more back then in the quarterfinals. But it's Real Madrid. It's very hard to kind of get a result against them, as Man City learnt last night. Although they put up a good fight. Lots of talk online about the goal, the equalising goal, and the fact the ball went out of play, but it's the second phase of play, so it's kind of depends how you look at it. Could the throw-in have made a bigger difference to the match? Maybe, but it doesn't matter. We should defend better, we should play better, and the pass out was a bit poor. But moving on to a team that are just flying right now, can't stop flying. Momentum is with them. They have the whole of a quarter of the north of the country backing them all the way, and some of us in the south as well. That's Liverpool. Very, very pleased with this resurgence under Jurgen Klopp after all the early season talk of the concerns and of Jurgen might need to start looking over his shoulder because, this is not what we expect. And he set high standards, and when you don't live up to those high standards, you have to deal with the punishment. And thankfully, your owners are competent enough to trust him, but incompetent enough to not do what other owners would do and get him out, which is good. So it's 50-50. But for you, Mark, how happy are you with what you're seeing with Liverpool and in this run you've been on?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. We're playing good football. Things are coming together nicely. Trent looks good in this inverted role. Gives me hope that he'll be able to transfer fully into midfield next season. Most important thing is we're getting the results. The Fulham game got across the line 1-0. It was what needed to be done. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't wonderful. Same with Brentford, 1-0, get across the line, get the goal. They had lots of set pieces and we defended for our life, which is great to see because I remember the last time we played Brentford and they beat us 3-0, 3-1, and they tore us apart on set pieces. So, good to see. And, I think all in all, this is what you think about when you look at this kind of run into the end of the season is that, it might be a little too late, but Liverpool are the only proven team in that hunt for the top 4 that know what it is to go on a 10, 15 game unbeaten run because we've done it time after time after time. To be fair, if you go back and look across the last 5 seasons, Liverpool will have probably gone on a 10-game unbeaten run in every season. So, this team are experienced in going unbeaten and going unbeaten when it matters and getting the wins. Where, we got Leicester, we got Aston Villa, we got Southampton in our final 3 games. They're all very winnable games. They're all games that Liverpool should realistically be coming out of with the points. And when you look at Man United, you see a team that has played a lot of games and they look tired. And, they look exhausted. Now, they may have the benefit of enough home games to get them across the line, but you do have to ask the questions, are they going to struggle? When you thought Wolves at home felt like a comfortable game, now you look at it and think, but, this United team looked tired and they lost to West Ham at the weekend with, some mistakes along the way. And, then when you look at Newcastle, you look at a team that, again, whilst everything has just been shining gloriously for, the Toon Army, they're a team that have not been here before. And you almost get the feeling with this Newcastle team that even though it would slow down the momentum of progress for the club, Europa League would still be an incredible success for them in the journey and in what they're building. And if you'd have offered them 5th at the beginning of the season, they'd have probably taken it. And I think they'll feel the nerves if they have to go to, Chelsea final game of the season and, be still in contention of a battle for that top four spot. And then when you look backwards at Brighton, they were the other team that you thought, okay, maybe Brighton could leapfrog Liverpool here because they're on great form. And then the football gods do what the football gods do, and they lose 5-1 to Everton. And you're like, wow. And now they've got Man City, Newcastle, and um, Man City, Newcastle, and another top team. I can't remember who it is. It might be you guys, Arsenal. Yeah. In their final 5 games, and you think, well, they're not going to finish top four, but they're also going to have a big impact on, again, the title and the top four. So Chelsea and Brighton, 2 teams that have got a big impact on what's to come. But I say all that to say that I think Liverpool, whilst they may have left it late, they still are probably the best positioned team as it stands to be able to make that happen because they think they'll win all their games. Whereas you look at Newcastle, you look at Brighton, you look at Man United, and you think there will be points dropped. It's just, will there be enough?
Yeah, that's a big point. I mean, you did touch on Man United's fixtures, and it's going to be a bit tricky for them because they're not really in the best of form. I'm expecting them to lose at least 2 of those games. One of them being, obviously, the Chelsea game. I think that should be a big defeat for them. And then depending on where they are in the table, I think Bournemouth might need those 3 points. I think they're safe, but they might need those 3 points. They might want them anyway to put a statement down. And Wolves as well, they're in a position where they're just outside of the teams that I'm considering for the drop, but it's all to play for, really. So it's not over yet. That makes it really, really interesting. For you, Marcus, just back to you on this quick point. Obviously, Curtis Jones has been having like a nice little run of form, a good patch of play. How highly do you rate him, and what do you think has been missing that's now appearing in his game?
I don't rate him super highly, but I think he's been good and done a job. And I think the thing about what you're seeing from him is probably just enough of a run of games. It's hard to get 6 or 7 games in a row in that Liverpool midfield when you're Curtis Jones, but look at Stefan Bajcetic earlier in the season. Got a run of a substantial amount of games because the midfield weren't great and managed to really show himself good on that. And I think the thing about Curtis is, look, he's a local lad, and he's always going to be liked. At Liverpool, and with the likes of Milner likely moving on. And I think what needs to be the movings on, and this is the fundamental damage of where Liverpool have kind of fallen apart, is that there was the Fabinho Henderson Milner midfield that did its job and worked well. It's aged, and 2 of the 3 of them replacements have done nothing to really step into the team, and that's Naby Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain, and they're going to need to be moved on, I think, this summer. So if you're able to move on Naby Keita, move on Oxlade-Chamberlain, and Milner's going to gracefully bow out and go play somewhere else where he gets to play every week. What a fantastic legacy he's left as a Premier League player. I think there's a place for Curtis Jones. I think it's that place along with, Beshaich, Harvey Elliott, where, now they don't need to play so many games and we don't need to have a lot of pressure on them, but they're squad players, 30 minutes here, 60 minutes there, filling in the gap, doing what needs to be done to help us through a long season. And I think that's probably, a position that Curtis Jones at this stage would probably be still quite happy with.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I think, you often forget about Naby Keita and Ox because they're just never available. But, moving from one player that, you don't see often to a man that is always the centre of attention, and he rightfully so, Mr. Mo Salah, he has been very much disrespected this year. So we're going to take a second and say, Mo Salah, you're having a great year. Below your normal standards, but better than most players, better than most. I want to talk to you about that, Matthew. He's having a really good run of goals. He's not far behind Kane and the alien. And I think that's the thing with players when they set such high expectations. Even looking at Cristiano Ronaldo last season at Manchester United, when you take a step back and you review his numbers and review his contribution, he was their best player. And yet the absolute disrespect that happened this year and how he left, it's just unacceptable. I'm sorry.
17 goals.
That's why you're going to suffer as the season ends. That's your punishment. No more top 4 for you lot. But Yeah, how do you rate what Mo Salah's done this year?
Got to put some respect on the guy's name at the end towards the end of the season. I mean, Liverpool gone on like a bit of I think what they've done is quite similar to what Newcastle did earlier in the season, where they just went under the radar, just kept doing their thing. They were kind of written off, though Craig was like adamant they could still make top four, and it kind of looks like that gap is getting smaller and smaller. And that's like in no part down to someone like Mo Salah, who, like Marcus said, all right, how the season has gone is not ideal, but remember, like Man City, they're experienced at this kind of level. So it's like if any team knows how to get back somewhere, if any team knows how to compete for something, I mean, they were competing for 4 trophies at the same time last year. So it's in them to compete for something, like, it's not a trophy, but top 4 is still, you get the more money, more influence, better players. Jurgen Klopp keeps his job, where at one point it was in doubt. They know what it's like to be at a level where we can get something, so let's go ahead for it. And because of that, he's able to achieve 3rd place in the Golden Boot rankings, which, considering you're going against Harry Kane and, the alien, is no feat to be kind of laughed at. His, the contributions he's made towards the end of his season, proof from putting it to the table. They're catching Manchester United right now, somewhat talented but inexperienced team at the moment, because they've obviously got the League Cup. They're going to be fighting for the FA Cup. Sort of out of sorts at the moment. Their wins haven't been massively convincing. I mean, the Aston Villa one wasn't all that convincing. Then the obviously loss against West Ham, and one factor in that is that Marcus Rashford's not scoring at much at the moment. And when he's not scoring, the goals kind of dry up just a little bit. I mean, he's been going on steam for most of the season, and he's had a fantastic season. But because of what he's had with his, the troubles he's had with the Euros and things like that, he's lacked that kind of maturity to kind of be like, I need to get back to football. Whereas someone as most like Mo Salah realizes that, at the level he's performed at since he's been in Liverpool for the past 5 years, has been able to find, somewhat of maybe a third of the form that he could normally do, which, granted, is not his best, but better than a lot of other people on their best day.
In fact, let me just reel off some stats for you. So these are the top 10 goal scorers in the Premier League this season as of recording. Number 1, actually we'll go from 10 up. So 10, we've got Bukayo Saka with 13 goals. Ollie Watkins in 9 with 14. Martin Odegaard in 8 with 15. Callum Wilson and Martinelli both tied in 7th with 15 goals.
Premier League.
Yeah, all just Premier League. Rashford in 5th on 16 goals. Mo Salah in 4th on 19 goals. Ivan Toney 3rd with 20 goals. Harry Kane's got 26. And Erling Haaland, the robot, is 35. So it just goes to show that he's not that far off. He's not far off catching Kane. If he bags a hat-trick in any of these, he gets a couple of hat-tricks.
Some good scoring numbers,
Last couple of games, he might get himself in that top shout. For you, Mark, looking at what how the season's gone for Mo Salah and how people need to put some respect on his name. What are you kind of hoping for from him in these last 3 games? Obviously, there's a big push on, as we've said, for Champions League, and I think you will make it in the end. I do not trust the red side of Manchester at all. They may not know it, but they're also bottle jobs. It's like they just haven't accepted it yet, But I love that you have your Carling Cup or Carabao Cup. Well done. But what's your expectations now for Mo Salah for the rest of the season?
Salah in all competitions has got 41 goals and assists contributions in 47 games. Like, Marcus Rashford's got less than that. Victor Osimhen's got less than that. Like these are players that are raved as to be having great seasons. Harry Kane's got less than that, who's apparently in contention for player of the season with his performances this season, outside of Erling Haaland, obviously, Brock Lesnar, but everybody's saying that if it wasn't for Haaland, Kane would be the player of the year. It's like, well, not sure about that. So yeah, I think Salah is highly disrespected, because of how good he's been in the last handful of years, and yeah, like say he's hitting that 40 mark on goals and assist contribution, which is huge. I think the only thing is he's not got as many goals as he would like in the Premier League, but at the end of the day, the key for the next three games is Liverpool win games. And if that means Salah scoring goals or creating goals, that he's contributing to us getting across the line in these next three games with 9 points. And that's that. Like, and we'll see where that leaves us. It's that, it's the first season in a handful that, at this stage we've not been competing for trophies, and that's going to be different. But I listened to an interview with Mo Salah, with Rio Ferdinand a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that was clear from that interview is that's produced a hunger in him. He's like, look, I don't like this. Like, this is not where I want to be at this stage in the season. So, here's hoping with a couple of new signings next year that we're back competing where we need to be. But yeah, like I make the point to say I think you're at a different level when people can say you're having a bad season when you've scored 41 or got 41 goals and assists, in 47 games. If that's a bad season, then you're basically in the same standard as Mbappe, Haaland, and in the past, Messi and Ronaldo.
When you put it that way, that's a crazy thought, and it's a true point, and even like looking at, the game the other night between Madrid and Man City, everyone's talking about Mbappe and Haaland, but Vinny Jr. should also be in that conversation now. And, like you said, Mo Salah should also be in that conversation too, because he's putting up numbers every year. He's a threat. He's a problem. And, he's doing what he needs to be done to fire Liverpool to Champions League football again, as we know. And talking about firing, no one's been sacked yet. But talking about fiery encounters, definitely we had the game between up north, Arsenal versus Newcastle. We got our points. Thank you very much. A lot of chat online about some of Arsenal's game management tactics. All I have to say back to that is good. You got a taste of your own medicine after the crap you lot pulled at the Emirates. Don't come crying online now talking about how Arsenal wasted tactics. And big up Dan Burns, who actually said it right. We did the same thing to them. We can't complain now. Fair point. Just tell your manager next time. Don't cry like a little wuss. Did the same thing to us. And we didn't. Did we complain about your dodgy tackles and some of them elbows? Like, no, we're going to do that right now. I have axe to grind with that. I'm disappointed in some of their players. Fabian Schär, you tried to hurt a fellow countryman. He's your national team captain, your teammate, and you left a foot in on him. Dirty. Kieran Trippier, talk too much. Throwing elbows everywhere. Dirty. Bruno Guimaraes, Mr. Elbow Man. That's what I'm going to start calling you from here. Actually, I'm going to call you Elbow. Blonde Elbow. Dirty. Everyone else was fine. But you lot in particular, Callum Wilson, talk too much, but you're from the streets. The streets of where? You're from a nice area, man. You're from Coventry. Calm down. Dirty. I didn't understand the audacity of Newcastle players to be complaining about the stuff that was happening, considering the things that the referee let go. Like, he was way out of his depth. What was your take on that battle up north, and how did you think Arsenal handled themselves?
Well, it started off like real fun in the beginning because they had that gilt-edged chance at the beginning with was it Jacob Murphy?
Yeah,
that goes in. I think the game is very, very different. So that was your first kind of like warning to this is a serious game. But then there's the one person you want to kind of step up to that is your captain, and comes in with a fantastic goal, long range, just lovely little daisy cutter along the line. Beautiful goal.
And I've got to add one thing. He said that he did the exact same goal against this Tottenham at their stadium. So it's a thing that he's working on. I think it's going to become his little trademark finish.
Little thing. But as a result, he's at what, 15 Premier League goals? Could be another Frank Lampard sort of thing. Midfield, score goals in midfield. You never know.
And no penalties.
And no penalties as well. So and he's still young, so he's got time to think. No, it was fiery. It was hot. It was like, there's a lot. It's the kind of thing you kind of expect especially from the Newcastle fans, with the season they're having, and the expectations have shifted in the last 2 or 3 years. Obviously they're fighting for the Champions League, but like Markus said, if they got Europa League, I don't think they'd be too disappointed. They would never expected this sort of thing at the start of the season, especially as it's finished like 10th last season. But but I did see one thing that was quite interesting, and I might be corrected on this. I saw who else was refereeing that game. Who was the main referee of the game as well?
It was I want to say Chris Kavanagh, but I don't know if that's his name.
But
Let's just say Chris
you
Kavanagh.
know who's second? I think you know who I also saw that game as well. And I thought I was getting just red flags everywhere. Mister, I swear it's Anthony Taylor.
Yeah, fourth official.
Fourth official. And that said that, look, I have a big axe to grind with him with any game he's ever officiated for Chelsea. So clearly he's got something against London clubs because so much was going ahead. Elbow. It's like a Randy Savage appreciation party or something. But like I've said before, Arsenal of old would have rolled over and like, oh, he's touching. But when we got a bit more strength, you got a bit more discipline, and you got something to kind of aim and kind of fight for. You ride those punches. You ride it. He's like, fine. You do to us, fine. We'll just do to you. Same energy. You've opened that door. We're gonna walk right through. That's all it is. That's all it was. And you handled that game. That was men. That's the difference between boys and men playing that day, and that result could count massively going towards the end of the season. Absolutely massive. This is going to be a key thing because Newcastle on a bit of a tear. It was only 2 weeks ago they opened 6 past Spurs at the same stadium. So you rode that storm. So it's kind of like, what worse you can do with us? You use your elbows, you use your feet, you use your leg, you use your mouth, bring it on. So this is going to be like I've said before, I've said it again, this title race is going to the end. It's going to the end. I'm standing by that. And for games like that.
Yeah, I think there's one more twist to come. But the Newcastle players, they forgot to play football. They played football, but then at times they forgot that they were on a head, shoulders, knees, and elbows rotation instead of just playing the game. But it's all fine. I want to throw a player to you, Mark, who I think has had a really good season in particular. And there's been some talk in the press about him potentially getting a move out of the club. And I feel like he'll be a bit premature with all he's been through. And that's Mr. Granit Xhaka. Not your flavour of the month. I know he is like Marmite to a lot of us, but I like him. I got a soft spot for him. He's grown on me. He's like when we had Jack Wilshere. You got to have that player that's a bit of an arsehole to everyone else, but he's your arsehole, so you love him. What's been your take on his performance in that game and just a general overview of him this season for Arsenal?
Yeah, he was good against Newcastle. I think my biggest gripe with a player like Granit Xhaka is that he should be experienced enough to know when to leave it, and he doesn't. And I think that's the thing that bothers me with a player like Granit Xhaka is that whilst it works and it's okay, 6 out of 10 of the times, the other 4 out of the 10 of the times he reacts and it changes the entire game and it costs you 2 points. Take you back to Anfield. And I think that's the thing that bothers me with it. But, you look at the way he played in the Newcastle game, that block was sensational. Like, blocked a clear goal of the tackle on Willock. Also, how many times have you seen other players in that position who, when the ball comes to Willock and he puts it in the net from 6 yards out, is still stood, 15 yards outside the penalty box, with his hands on his head, being like, oh no, so devastating. Can't believe it's gone in. Granit Xhaka's not Messi for pace, so if he can get back, so can the rest of you guys. You know what I mean? So fair play, to Granit. And, but again, there are moments in that game where his aggression almost got the better of him, and if it wasn't for his own players holding him back, he'd have gone and put, his fist through someone's face. And, maybe that's just his nature and his kind of personality, and it's the way he's wired, and it shows he cares. And yeah, if you're an Arsenal fan, I'm sure you can in some ways embrace that and, take the negative that kind of comes, the downside that kind of comes with it because of the fact that, at the end of the day, he's on 100 grand a week or whatever it is. But when he leaves the pitch, he's feeling what you're feeling as a fan. And that's what you want from your players. You don't want your players to be walking off after losing 2-0 away to Newcastle and be like, yeah, but I'm going to still get paid, so who cares, right? You want them to feel the pain on the journey back to London that you're feeling on the journey back to London, because you're like, they're the ones that are going to fix it. So if they're not feeling what I'm feeling, then, we're screwed. And then, that's why a manager like Jurgen Klopp is such a highly prized manager outside of his footballing, management ability, is that with every step along the way. He's feeling what you're feeling. When he goes and celebrates in the face of the fourth official, he does that because you would do that. That's what you would want to do as the fan. Be like, you have screwed us so badly for 90 minutes. Get in. That's what you would want. So yeah, I think there's pros and cons to Granite. And I think that the cons can be quite sharp, but fair play to the way he played against Newcastle. It was a good performance.
Yeah, he definitely turned up and did a job, and I was quite happy with him for what he did. I want to throw one more player at you, Mark. I want to talk about the captain, Martin Odegaard, who I have been critical at times of this season because I feel like when you're that good and that capable, you should do better and deliver more. But he definitely turned up quite a lot in this game and got us a very crucial goal to make it 1-0 and just was a constant source of calmness and availability, and his pass selection, his moves, everything was on the money. And but for Bukayo and Martinelli being a little bit casual and himself in their finishing, might have actually left there with a nice 5-0 or 4-0 win. But what's your views on Martin Odegaard and how close do you think he is to being the player of the season this year for the league?
Yeah, look, I think Odegaard has been brilliant, and whilst I know there's been criticisms from the Arsenal faithful for not stepping up in enough big games, I think he heard you, and the last couple of games has been very good. When it's mattered, and yeah, I think he's a talented footballer who is really starting to show some of what we hope to see, and expect of such a young and highly rated player kind of coming into his own. But I also think Erling Haaland has just been so good that he's going to get Player of the Year most likely. But I think if Arsenal win the title and Odegaard, to me has been Arsenal's most impactful, important player in what would be an incredible title victory, and I think a case could be made. But I still think with it being individual awards and Haaland breaking, Premier League records, he'll probably win that. But yeah, fantastic player, very important season. And you say 15 goals and 15 assists is kind of where you want to be for a good quality season as a midfielder. This is where Vinny Jr. is hitting standards that are quite ridiculous because he's up there with 20 odd goals and 20 odd assists, and you're like, yeah, fair play, mate. You're really hitting high numbers and standards here. But I think from Odegaard's perspective this season and contributions, it's been very, very good.
Yeah, he's definitely been on the money, and I'm happy with him. Like I said, because of his technical quality, when you're that good, you more is expected of you and you need to deliver. And that was one of the biggest problems with Mesut Ozil in the latter days of his time at Arsenal, in that because he was so capable, you were judged harsher. And even if he had an okay day, if he wasn't really influencing the play, like Mesut Ozil can't have a game like, say, Conor Gallagher, for example, where it's like he's there and he does his job, but doesn't get a goal or assist and doesn't really make a key pass. It's like, you can't do that. Conor Gallagher can be that pressing engine in the team, and it's fine because it facilitates the bigger picture. But Mesut isn't that. I just want to talk about two final Arsenal players, then we're going to move on to the bottom of the table and what is turning out to be one of the most exciting relegation races for everyone else. Not the guys down there. I know you're all suffering, and I feel your pain. Southampton, I really believe you're going to make it out, especially after you almost spoiled our party. I really believe you're going to make it out. But now, what was the point? What was the point? What was the point? You just ruined it for nothing. Anyway, Kivior and Jorginho, and I want to say them both as a pair because they're two players that you could argue in the last series of games, they could have probably come in against Southampton, against West Ham. Both could have got minutes there. But they both come in and looked quite comfortable and looked quite good. I think Jorginho had a brilliant game against West Ham. Got man of the match, which a lot of us fans feel like that's probably wasn't deserved. I mean, Odegaard was shocked when he got it himself, which was quite funny at the end of the game. Which is, you won it. What for? But what do you think, Matthew, about George? I know you guys had a love-hate relationship with him. You let him go. He scored you at the Emirates on what you missed out on. Made Enzo Fernandez look like Matteo Guendouzi's long-lost cousin. It was absolutely embarrassing how poor Enzo looked next to Jorginho. But how do you rate what he's done so far in the limited games he's had at Arsenal?
He's slotted in like really, really well. I know you've had your tabs on him before. I think it was a year and a half ago or so when we in the times where he was absolutely delivering. We're never going to let him go. But second time around, I see why he's there. He very much fits the thing, and I think he's good where he has players that he can send it off to. That's why his role is so. And like Man City wanted him so much. At the moment, right now, it doesn't work because going forward, we have like zero confidence. We can't exactly send it to anyone because we're not going to score. They can't put it behind the net. I want to take you back to actually funny enough, Lampard's first stint when he had him there, and he had one Tammy Abraham. There were some passes that he was pulling off, and he would just find Tammy Abraham through nothing. And I think even in that season, he got like, for his first Premier League season as a main striker, he got like 17 goals, which, is absolutely fantastic. But that's because he could find him. Tammy had so much confidence to literally take the ball and go off, lead in that line, and he did absolutely brilliant. And that's where and look who you have now. You've got Jesus, you've got Martinelli, you've got Saka, and if he wants to try and find Odegaard somehow, he can. His passing ability is really, really good. What he's not good at is being under pressure. But because he has players around him like Partey and like Xhaka, he's all right. He doesn't feel like he's got a mistake. He's less likely to make a mistake with you guys as he would with us. And with us at times, especially going on to the Champions League run, his run under Maurizio Sarri as well, which doesn't get talked about enough. He was so integral. At one point, I thought he'd be our captain. Really did one point he'd be our captain because he's very good at telling people where he wants them to go. So he's done. But this is where he's good. This is where he's good. But when the bad eventually does come around at some point in the future, don't say we didn't warn you. Because when he first came to Chelsea, he was great, fantastic, and cheeky penalties, he's your man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Jorginho's going to be at Arsenal long term, but I'm pretty happy with what he's done. And young Kivior, he came in, looked reliable, looked solid. Can't argue with his performance. Definitely showed why Rob Holding should have been put out of the team a lot sooner. When we look back at the season as a whole, Mark, outside of the fact that Arsenal, in those games in particular, like Liverpool away, West Ham at home, West Ham away, Southampton at home, do you think Arteta will look back, maybe not necessarily Liverpool, because that's a special case game, but the other two games, do you think he might look back and regret not making that change at centre-back sooner? Or is it more a case of offensively, we should have just played better and not been like bozos at times?
No, Southampton, you went behind really early. And, I think the West Ham game was all of your own making. You had the lead, you missed a penalty to restore that lead comfortably again, and they went up the pitch and scored a minute or two later. And I think it was all your own making, to be honest. I think Arteta is probably the type of manager that will look back and not necessarily regret, but think, yeah, maybe I should have made this move sooner or done something different. But I think he is the type of person to look at the detail, and in lots of cases that's good. It's what you want in your manager, someone that's able to look and evaluate, even the wins and not be happy, because I think that is, one of the the key qualities of being an elite manager is, your team wins 6-0. And you look at it and you say, yeah, but here, and here is where we fell short. And, because just because you put the ball in the net doesn't mean that your performance was a whole performance. And I think fans often glaze over that because we won. We got the points at the end of the day. And the points are what matter. But in terms of if we want to get the points again next week, then we need to be able to look and evaluate these things well, to be able to make sure we made the right moves. And, no manager is going to make the right move for the entire season. And Arsenal was inevitably going to go through a period where they dropped points and they lost games. It was somewhat inevitable. And Man City will remind you that you can lose only one game in a Premier League season and still not win the title. So, the competition is quite intense with a team as good as Man City. But yeah, I think, all in all, Arteta has done a great job, with this Arsenal team, and he's got to make decisions, and that is one he may look back and say, "Oh, I wish I made that earlier." But at the end of the day, he's also made a lot of good decisions that he probably hasn't been praised for too. So
That's a fair counterpoint, and yeah, I think that's definitely the way how a lot of us look at it. It's been an exciting season, and yeah, that 3 game run in particular, leading up to Man City away, it's one that it stings a lot. But as I say, it ain't over yet, and I believe there's a couple more twists coming in that tail. And as long as we stay within touching distance, we might just pit them to the post. I don't want to get my hopes up, but you know what I believe. So I've been banging that drum since December. My perspective hasn't changed. We're gonna head down to the bottom of the table, or as I call it, the dirty south. But Southampton sitting at the bottom, rooted on 24 points. Then we've got Leeds and Leicester, Rotherham, both on 30 points. Goal difference is a 10 goals difference between Leeds and Leicester, with Leeds having -25 and Leicester having -15. Then Everton outside the bottom 3 on 32 points with -21 goal difference. Nottingham Forest above them on 33 with -31. And then there's West Ham above them on 37. But I think at this point in time, West Ham are relatively safe. I think their next game week, if they get the 3 points or even a draw, that will be enough to keep them out of that contention. But looking at those bottom 5 teams, there's a lot to play for. And I just want to talk about the fixtures coming up. So Leeds have got Newcastle, West Ham, and then Tottenham as their final 3 games of the season. Massive game for them on Saturday against Newcastle. If they don't win it or don't get points on the board, it might really look like they might be on their way back down again. Like, how would you assess that and their chances of getting a result against Newcastle?
I mean, they were nearly there against Man City. They were nearly there, and then he thought the twist would come back. We're like, ooh, Big Sam comes in the first game, what a new manager bounce. I mean, for one, they defended better, and maybe switching the keeper up, giving the back four a little bit more confidence. I don't know, but are they home or away for Newcastle?
They are at home.
Well, I've been saying for a long time, with teams like this, your home games are going to count, and unfortunately for Leeds, it hasn't really. But a new manager who knows how to defend and potentially park the bus and play a more boring, albeit safer kind of football. But it's Newcastle, and they're Liverpool. They're going to understand that Liverpool are right on their back. So
it's going to be tough. But you have to remember that, like Leeds on the big side at Man City, they got to half time at 0-0.
They did.
They looked respectable, not great, but respectable. They were alive.
It's not impossible. It's not impossible. They're going to at least pick up 2 points. I can see them pick up at least 2 points in those games.
Okay.
At least 2 points.
What's your take, Mark? Do you think Leeds have a chance? Or is it done?
No, I think they do. I think Newcastle are going to feel the pressure. I obviously want Leeds to do well in that game, but I do think Newcastle are going to feel the pressure, and that Leeds do have the opportunity to build upon what they did at Man City, which is what most teams down there don't do against Man City, which is get humiliated. So they got a late goal back with after Gundogan missed a penalty, and who knows where it could have gone, if they'd have had an extra 10 minutes. But at the end of the day, I think the good positive signs to take for Leeds from that game, and they've got to take them into the Newcastle game and be on the front foot. And, it also wouldn't be surprising me if Newcastle won 4-0. So, I think that is the nature of that type of game. And, I'll be getting ready at lunchtime, with my Leeds top on, supporting the Leeds. Come on, the mighty Leeds.
Yeah, we need you to stay up. We need you to get them 3 points. We all have something riding on it. Not so much Chelsea, but we all have something riding. We need you in the league. You know what I'm saying?
Nice to have you there, man.
We need more Yorkshire representation. It's important. It's very important. Diversity and inclusion. Yorkshiremen have to be here. Moving up to the team who have absolutely capitulated. And if you were to tell a Leicester fan that they would have, in the space of 5 years, would have won the league, won the FA Cup and the League Cup, and be on the verge of relegation after surviving, narrowly being relegated before the start of this run of success, they wouldn't believe you. They would not believe you. But that's where we are. Mark, where do you think it's gone wrong for Leicester, and do they have a chance under Dean Smith of making it out of this absolute cesspit of relegation that they're in right now?
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tight. They've really fallen apart. They have the best players. of them bottom teams to be able to
Yeah,
muster
that's
something
true.
together. You know, Madison is quality. Vardy on his day is still a very good finisher. Daka's not a bad finisher. Like, um,
Mm.
they have the players for me. And Diddy is a very good player. I know he's not played much this season, but in terms of you thinking of players, if Leicester got relegated, who you'd sign, Yuri Tillsman. Leicester have
Yeah,
a
yeah,
good
it's true.
squad. They should not be getting relegated. But it's one of them where it's not worked out, and then they've took the chance on another manager. If anything, for Leicester though, like what a journey it must be to be a Leicester fan. They've better than being Southampton, who have been in the Premier League
Mm.
for 11 years and are basically just you know not done much in that time. Like probably not even had any higher than like a 10th place finish, maybe. It's certainly a journey. It's certainly enjoyable. I think Leicester will probably stay up, but hopefully they do that after Monday night because we need the 3 points.
Nah, man, that's crazy. Like, I see what you mean by having the best players, though. Like, you think about it, their squad's actually got like proper like international talent in there, like Iheanacho,
Yeah,
Tillemans, Vardy, Madison, Barnes, Sionchu. They got Ricardo. Is it Pereira?
Pereira, yeah.
yep.
Pereira, yeah, scored a good goal against Chelsea earlier this season. No, they got some ballers. They got some players. It's just a bit of a surprise, really.
They shouldn't be where they are based on their squad. They really shouldn't. I mean,
Yeah.
Solanke was frozen out of their team. I actually thought he was sold.
Nah, he just wasn't
He
playing.
was just Brendan Rodgers was just like, nah, I don't fancy him anymore. Just let him out. Like he was one of your best defenders last season. Are you crazy? But I mean, it's tough for them. Liverpool first, which that'll be defeat, obviously. I mean, you never know, but with all due respect, Liverpool are going to win
You would
there.
hope so.
Like, we're not expecting you guys not to get it. For all parties involved, that's very important for all of us. Then they got Newcastle, and then West Ham to end it all. I mean, by the West Ham game, that could be a gimme because West Ham hopefully will have Europa Conference League final to look ahead to. They should be safe by then. I think Moyes will rest key players and focus on that full time. He's had an incredible roller coaster of journey at West Ham this season, from being on the verge of getting sacked to fighting back to being on the verge of a cup final. Incredible. And then it's just that middle game against Newcastle. Like, what Newcastle will turn up? Will they still have a fight in them to try and make Champions League? Will they? I mean, hope. I mean, you'd hope, and you'd hope that by numbers, Newcastle would have enough to still be in top four. Man United will drop out, and then Liverpool would just leapfrog them, and then that would just be top four set, and then Newcastle can just chill and take their foot off the gas and crumble. But it's just going to be very hard for them. But it looks like them alongside Southampton are in really big trouble because you just don't know where the win's going to come from. They've got the goals, they've got the players, but it's just, can they get that vital 3 points? And then we're going to go over to your neighbours, Mark. Your 6 point season neighbours. I'm going to start with you on this one, Matthew. Massive game coming up on Sunday. No pressure, but Sean Dyche, you owe us one. All right? You owe us one. Same with Southampton. We gave you guys some charity 3 points. For some, Southampton was a draw, but we gave you a charity 3 point to start your reign off. And how did you repay us for that favour? You didn't. You have been a disappointment, Sean Dyche. I expect better from you. I am disappointed. Very disappointed. So I'm not asking for much. I'm really not asking. All I'm asking for is at least a draw. A win would be amazing, but just hold out for a draw. I don't care if it's a 0-0 and you stink out the joint. I don't care if you have every man behind the ball, including the team bus. I don't care what you do. I don't care if somehow, some way, Gundogan and them guys are unable to finish the game. I don't care. Whatever it takes, don't lose. How do you see that game going?
You know what? This is what I mean by a twist and how his titles could go like all the way. There is somewhere for them to slip. If it's not against us, could it be in Everton? They got that 5-1, a surprising 5-1 at a perfect time. Never in my wildest dreams I think they were going to win, let alone put 5 behind Brighton, who have had a really good season. And it's just like, it's set up to be that way. Then they go on a bit of a run of, a run of games where it just kind of works out, where at this point of the season, you can't afford to drop any real points. So a draw would be good, but a win would be better. And I think deep down that they are going to know that. And I think Man City, fighting on all these fronts, are going to have to bring their A game in pretty much all these games. That's the thing where the position they're in now, they're well aware that the club behind them will put everything into it, but also the clubs below them, way below them, will put it all into it. So their players are going to be pushed on three fronts: FA Cup, Champions League, Premier League, towards the end of the season. So I reckon this game, if it goes anything like the Leeds game, where, because the Leeds gave them, like you said, 45 minutes, no goals. And that was a home. They're away at Goodison, and Goodison's going to be singing. Goodison's going to be rocking. So I don't know. There's something controversial is going to happen in this game. Whether it's a scoreline, a decision, something to do with VAR, something's going to happen. I just don't know what it is.
I hope it's in all of our team, all of our best interests, and not against us. But on that note, Man City had a very tough game against Real Madrid. They worked them hard. Kyle Walker was drenched in sweat after 30 minutes. In fact, the commentator was just like, "Look, Kyle Walker, he's wet." And I was like, "Steady." But he was drenched in sweat. Like, I've never seen Kyle Walker look like that before, ever. When have you ever seen Kyle Walker look like he's just jumped in the sea and playing a football match? Vinicius ran him ragged. I think that game was not just physically taxing. I think it was mentally taxing too. And I'm wondering if, with the way how that game went, because it's poised at 1-1, neither team has the advantage. Madrid had some good chances, well saved. Same with Man City. So it's quite even. Will Pep decide to mix things up in the hope that they can secure this league title? But where do you see that going, Mark? And what do you think is likely to happen?
Yeah, like, I think Everton have nothing to lose, right? Like, they're just outside the relegation zone. They need to win, but it's Man City. And, everybody knows playing Man City, if you're not, the likes of another top team, it's basically just a gimme. And, we say that they put 4 past Liverpool and 4 past you guys as well. So inevitably, Man City is a tough ask. But I think that gives the Everton, mentality one of, well, hey, we have nothing to lose, so let's just go and give it a shot. Let's do what we can. We need points to stay up. And football is a weird one. I would inevitably, any other stage in the season be like, yeah, 3-0 Man City, comfortable. I expect them to win. But there's something about football when a team down there needs points to stay up. And I think it could be an interesting one. I think we're set for a super interesting weekend of fixtures. I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
And last but not least, Nottingham Forest. Tough. I really enjoyed their game against Southampton. I felt sorry for Southampton because I never would have expected it would have gone the way it did. But I really felt sorry for them. But hey, this is how it goes. For you, Mark, obviously they've got Chelsea next and they got Arsenal. And they were saying, well, we hope by then Arsenal have nothing to play for. You don't know Arsenal if that's what you're wishing for, Morgan Gibbs-White. The one thing you want is Arsenal to have something to play for in that game rather than nothing. Because if we've got nothing to play for, we'll smash you for 7. I don't know why. That's just how we are. If we've got something to play for, it'll be a tight game. But if we've got nothing to play for, we'll play it.
7 points, yeah.
Look at us against Chelsea. Oh, it's all over. Oh, look, the goals came back. It's just, I don't know, something about the team, but we'll figure it out. But do you think, looking at it, Mark, do you think they're safe now and there's not much to worry about?
No, they're definitely not safe yet, especially considering they have 2 tough teams coming up. And, they could lose them 2 games and all of a sudden they're right back in the mix and back in the relegation zone. I think, I wouldn't say they're safe, but I think they are the best footballing side of the 5 teams at the bottom. And to me, maybe would be a team I'd like to see stay up just because I like the way they play. I know they get battered in some games surprisingly, but then they beat Liverpool this season, and they come and they pull some results, and you're like, where did that come from? The Brighton game a couple of weeks ago, So I like what I see with Nottingham Forest, and I hope they stay up. But I don't think it's over yet, and I think it's unfortunate for them. They have 2 tough games coming up in a row. with Arsenal and Chelsea. And that Palace game, the last game of the season, might actually matter.
Do you think you'll give them 3 points to stay up?
Well, here's the thing: like it could all go for nothing. That Bournemouth game might mean nothing. We just go and just bend over and just watch them do what they do at Stamford Bridge. It could very much turn out that way. But I said it once, I said it again. With a team like that, I think they're very much. They remind me of Leeds when they first got promoted, where it's like they certain places they won't necessarily bow down, but if they leave it open enough, they will take a battering. But if you look at the games like the Brighton game, the Liverpool was your Liverpool game, that was at home, wasn't it, where you got beat?
At their home.
Yeah, so City ground. So City, Chelsea, and Liverpool, they all came away with a draw or a win. So I've said it once, I've said it again. Their survival, considering they've just been promoted back to the Premier League this season, will come down to their home games. But very easily, because of the form that we've had previously, we could very easily just go there and not bother turning up because we're convinced that we're safe. So again, I want them to stay because I really like them. It's great having another historical club back up there. But I think if it doesn't happen against us, because I think Chelsea, Palace, and then Chelsea, Arsenal, then Palace, they could pick up a win from anywhere. They really can. I just think it's more likely to happen in their home games. But I don't know, because they nearly got a job on us back in December or January. So I don't know, but I think it's going to be their home game. It's going to be pivotal.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But well, they have a home game against Arsenal coming up. And for all due respect, Nottingham Forest, that'll be the one game when you guys just let us run through you like a train. Sorry, but it is what it is. I don't care. We've got bigger things to play. We've both got big things to play for. But by then, hopefully, the rest of us have done you a favour and you'll be fine. I think we'll leave it there, really. Everton, big game this weekend. No pressure. But like I said, you owe us one. So please, Sean Dyche. Everton players. Alex Iwobi, do it for Hale End. Do it for your uncle. Do it for yourself. Please. And on that note, we're going to sign off. Thanks for listening. Hope you have a great rest of the week and you enjoy the rest of the football coming up. And if you're a fan of the teams that are at the bottom, I really wish you all the best. Unless you're playing one of the two teams in red, then it is what it is. If you're playing the team in blue, do what you got to do. See you all next time.
Peace.
Peace.